Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Good morning, everybody. We'll give it maybe one more minute for people to join and get settled. Then we'll get started. Okay, it's 10:02. I think we'll get going. People can continue to join as we get rolling. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on fostering a circular economy in tourism and hospitality. I'm Brittany Taylor with Economic Development Cowichan, part of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. Thank you all so much for taking the time to participate today. I'm joining this call from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Cowichan people, as I'm located in Duncan. And I think we have participants from all over the island and possibly all over the province today. So I encourage you to share the territories that you're joining from in the chat. And you're also welcome to post questions in the chat throughout the webinar too. This webinar is part of a series of industry-specific circular economy webinars that are hosted through the Circular Economy Accelerator program. And we have upcoming webinars focused on construction, food and beverage processing, and local government as well. Georgia, next slide, I think. Yeah, there we go. The Accelerator program is an initiative of the Vancouver Island Coast Economic Developers Association, or VICEDA, and Synergy Foundation, with support from a number of program partners. We are very grateful to have financial support from Island Coastal Economic Trust, as well as support from a number of local governments and organizations. So you see them on the screen there: City of Nanaimo, Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization, Cowichan Valley Regional District, of course, City of Port Alberni, Municipality of North Cowichan, City of Campbell River, and Gabriola Island Chamber. And the Circular Economy Program is a pilot project providing one-on-one support to 16 businesses on Vancouver Island, the Gulf Islands, and the Sunshine Coast who are looking to adopt circular economy principles in their operations. So Synergy staff are visiting each business for an on-site assessment and then providing a custom report of key opportunities for each business to reduce waste, energy use, and emissions. And these reports have identified, on average, 41 actions per business, which, if implemented, would reduce waste by 28,000 kilograms, GHG emissions by 91 tons of carbon dioxide, and water usage by 1,500 cubic meters on average per business per year. So those numbers add up pretty fast. From a Cowichan perspective, we've seen really strong interest in the circular economy from our business community for a number of years. So we're super excited to be part of this program because it allows our participating businesses to kind of take that next step and take their circular economy interests and make them into a reality. So super excited to be part of this pilot. And with that, I'll pass it off to Georgia from Synergy to lead us through the rest of the webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brittany. Really pleased to be here today to talk to all of you about the circular economy, something that I'm very passionate about and grateful that I get to work on advancing every day through the Synergy Foundation and our partnership with VICEDA. It's been really exciting to, work on this accelerator project and see how inspired businesses are to adopt circular economy principles into their operations. Today we're going to do a bit of a circular economy 101, really just a quick refresher on some key terms before jumping into the main part of today's content. So we'll share a bit of a highlight from one of our accelerator businesses, as well as bringing in Ground Up Cafe, another participant, for a showcase on their experience and some opportunities they identified. We'll also have a guest speaker from Reusables VI as our solution spotlight today. And then we'll wrap up discussing a few other circular solutions that you could explore implementing in your operations and next steps to advance the circular economy within your business. So when we start to talk about the circular economy, I always like to take a step back and look at our current economic system, which is linear. We know our current economic system is wasteful and is creating a lot of pollution. So we're extracting virgin resources that we're producing into new goods. We're shipping them around the world often before we're purchasing them for consumption, often only once before it's ending up in the landfill as waste. So we know that this model is not sustainable. A lot of our regional districts are working towards waste reduction goals. We're, seeing our landfills reaching capacity. So we know we need to do something, and businesses are a really great driver to help advance the circular economy. So in an equitable circular economy, resources and manufactured goods have been designed to remain in the system. You can see that with those 5 re-entry mechanisms in the diagram there. So using innovation, reuse and repair, redistribution, reconditioning, and recycling processes, all of which are then powered by renewable energy. So as a result, pollution and waste are now eliminated from the system. And what's really neat is these innovations are also enabling both affordable lifestyles as well as empowering new ventures to create jobs for the future. So we need new services to help us in some of our gaps in the circular economy. And so a really great space for these new ventures to come to life. And through the Accelerator program, we've worked with businesses to identify opportunities for them to utilize these reentry mechanisms within their business to help them enhance the circularity of their operations. So when working with businesses, Synergy is really focusing on material, energy, and water waste. And as you can see here on the diagram, the inner loops, these green ones, they're significantly smaller. And so we're prioritizing these areas of circularity first. They are keeping the materials in circulation at their highest value and require the least amount of energy or changes to the goods. So when completing a circularity assessment, we're considering these inner reentry mechanisms first. Once reuse or redistribution is no longer possible, we work our way out into reconditioning and recycling to continue to keep the value of these materials in circulation. However, those outer processes are going to require more energy and greater changes to the goods. So through the program, we really highlighted a few key sectors in terms of businesses that participated, and that's reflected in the webinars that we're going to be hosting in this series. And one of the key sectors we worked with was tourism and hospitality. So we worked with 2 hotels and 4 restaurants on the island to identify nearly 290 actions combined to advance circularity. Through the program, we haven't had a chance to work with any tour operators yet in our pilot project, but we do hope to work with some in the second phase of the program. From these 6 businesses, we identified over 17,000 kilograms of waste, over 41 tons of CO2 emissions, and over 21,000 cubic meters of water that could be reduced. So, some of these can seem like quite large numbers, and some of these actions are coming from things like transitioning from natural gas patio heaters to electric patio heaters, or increasing their landfill waste diversion. So, sending less material to landfill and finding recycling or reuse opportunities for those instead. Increasing energy efficiencies, so through lighting, Energy Star appliances and equipment, and reducing heat loss with drafty doors or windows or walk-in coolers. So looking at a wide variety of actions to help advance circularity within these businesses. Featuring here Coast Bastion Hotel, business that we worked with in Nanaimo. They're a 179 guest room hotel, and they are currently going through a renovation phase at their hotel. So it was a really interesting time to get to work with this property, as they're making key considerations that will have significant impact given the number of rooms that they have. So through the report, the estimated environmental impact of the measurable actions. So this is not for all actions we had for Coast Bastion, but just the ones that we could truly quantify given the data we had available. They'd be able to reduce their water usage by nearly 60%
Wow.
from using low flow models for toilets, shower heads, sinks, as well as transitioning to air cooled walk-in cooler units. They have a 5% reduction in electricity usage and 15% reduction in landfill waste. So these are the opportunities that we identified for the business. A few of our highlight recommendations were, from range from transitioning to reusable cups to eliminate single-use plastic throughout the hotels. So for instance, previously having single-use plastic cups in the lobby, gym, and staff room, we're able to transition to those to reusable cups and connect their existing water towers to the water line to eliminate the need for water jug delivery. They're looking to explore offering low carbon menus. So they do a fair bit of catering and events at the hotel as well. So having a low carbon menu option to help further reduce their emissions. Looking at Energy Star appliance upgrades, especially within the room renovations. One of the most significant ones ended up being looking at the mini fridges that they were speccing for the rooms and ensuring that all 179 of those were Energy Star models as well. And then, as I mentioned, water efficiencies in the rooms, so low flow models. A few other opportunities that we explored with them included partnering with a local recycling atelier to turn their old textiles, such as curtains and linens, into new products like tote bags and hats. So we've seen this done with other properties, and really kind of unique opportunity. We also explored the opportunities to install a rooftop garden. So they have a beautiful rooftop space, and having a food growing garden or a pollinator garden to help support the needs of their kitchen, as well as how we can work with them to enhance their waste diversion station by adding expanded polystyrene, or EPS, especially as they go through the renovation period. They have a lot of EPS right now, soft plastics and universal waste recycling, as well as making sure that their paper towel is being composted and having clear and adequate signage throughout the facility. So with that, I'd like to put a bit of a poll to the group, and just get a sense of what's your most problematic waste stream within your business, or you feel within your industry right now. So my colleague Maddie will get this poll launched here, and it would be great to just see the responses. And I know there's going to be different challenges in different regions as well, depending on the services that are available. But we want to do similar polls with each of the region, or each of these sectors, to see what some of the trends are, and perhaps some new opportunities. Wonderful. Looks like we've got about half the people responding so far, so we'll give it just another minute. All right, Maddie, I think you could end that poll and share the results. It looks like single-use items is really one of the most problematic streams amongst the group here. So I think we've got a great guest speaker coming today to talk to us a little bit more about that. Also seeing the plastics, soft plastics being a really challenging stream, and the electronics and e-waste. So, but definitely we've got single-use items leading the way, followed by the soft plastics. So hopefully we can dive into some more of those opportunities afterwards. Wonderful. And then we've got one more poll before we hop into our guest speakers. So we'd just like to hear from the group. What do you feel is needed to reduce waste in tourism and hospitality? So we've got another poll here. Some of the key drivers really in advancing the circular economy. Do you feel that it's a capacity building piece around education, whether that's internally with your staff or your guests? Is it funding related? Infrastructure related, whether that's composting or recycling, or the need for alternative products and services. And if you feel like there's something that's really needed in this space but hasn't been listed here, feel free to select other and share that in the chat with the group, and we'll give this just another 30 seconds here for folks on the call to answer. Great. I think we can end that poll and share results here. So it looks like some of the biggest needs are coming in with that recycling infrastructure, and that's definitely something that we've heard through this program as well, followed by kind of alternative products and services and education. But this one seems to be quite close in terms of what's really needed to support that transition. And if you've selected other, I'm not able to access the chat right now, just with screen sharing, but please share that in the chat. My colleague Maddie will be sure to capture that for our reporting as well. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in those polls. And with that, I would like to pass it over to Jen and Becky. They are the co-owners and operators of Ground Up Cafe and Catering on Gabriola Island, and they participated in the VICEDA Accelerator program and completed their circular opportunity assessment earlier this year. It's such a pleasure to work with their team, and they are really doing great work over on Gabriola. So I'm pleased to have them here today to share a bit more about the work that they've done and their experience in the program. So Jen and Becky, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I hope you can hear us well. Sorry for the background noise. We're in the cafe and we don't have a real office, so we're just kind of tucked in a corner. So yes, I'm Jen, this is Becky. We're the 2 of 4 co-owners of Ground Up Cafe on Gabriola Island. And we took part in the Circular Economy Accelerator program early on in this year. I go to the next slide. I'll give you a little background on us. We started primarily as a catering company and a pop-up cafe where we would serve food at the local farmers markets in 2019. And we would use a local commercial kitchen to prep. And it's the 2 of us plus our partners. And me and Becky both grew up in Gabriola, so we have a lot of connection to the community here. And between the 4 of us, we've got about 60+ years experience in restaurant and hospitality. So we're bringing lots of different background to it, but this is kind of where we wanted to be. Our goal was eventually to open a cafe with a bit of a vision to do things differently, more sourcing locally, keep things community inclusive, positive inclusive work environment, keeping our waste down, and lots of community engagement. And in 2022, so last June, we're just about at our year open, we opened a brick and mortar cafe on the island. And it's been a really great first year. And yeah, we're excited to tell you about what we learned in the Accelerator program. So we can go to the next slide. So we were introduced to the program through the Gabriola Chamber and encouraged to apply by the former ED, Julie. She thought we'd be a great fit to do the program, knowing kind of our vision for the business. When we looked into it, it did really fit with our business mission and values, and we thought it would be a great idea to see where we kind of stood currently, if there's more we could do, what we could do further down the road to really increase our waste diversion and just be more efficient in our overall practices. Right. So Georgia and Jared came over to the cafe and spent a good few hours looking around, checking out all our stuff. They collected tons of data from us, everything from our energy use, our propane, our they checked out our recycling. We everything's organized through the local Gabriel Island Recycling Organization. We've got compost bins out back for kitchen waste. They looked at where we were sourcing things from. They checked out our waste oil, where we were sending all of the recycled waste oil, compost all of our paper products, where we were sourcing from, how we dealt with those, if they were compostable, if they are recyclable, and all the reusable packaging we used. So some of the things that we are currently doing, like I said, the recycling, we've got a really kind of very organized, thanks to Becky, recycling area out back for all of our staff to use. And every new staff who comes on, we are very clear about where everything needs to go. The gyro itself, it's also they like things very efficient, so we need to keep things really organized for them. All of our kitchen waste goes in the compost bins. And then little things like the coffee grounds go back to local farms. And we get a lot of reusable packaging from local farms as well, like egg crates, Rubbermaid
Let me turn my camera.
and coffee bags, etc. You can go to the next slide. So we want to kind of touch on a few of the challenges and barriers we face on the island. One of the things with our waste diversion with the compost, as much of the kitchen waste that can be put in compost is great, but all the RDN compost, we are in the regional district of Nanaimo area. There's no commercial pickup for compost on the island, so that's a big barrier for us. So we actually haul it home with us and put it in our own recycling bin or our own compost bins for pickup every 2 weeks, which can be tricky. We're often throwing it in our parents' bins and friends and neighbors. So, but anything to keep it from just going in the dumpster. This is also the building we're in is an old building. It's been a restaurant. It's been 5 different restaurants before us from the 80s. There's a lot of big expenses. There's a lot of things like windows that need to be replaced, appliances that need to be replaced. Anything else you can think of? Yeah.
Just everything in this building is old and inefficient.
Yeah.
So we're slowly making our way towards making it better. But like we have a huge opportunity for solar here, which is like something we'd like to do down the road. We have a giant, very straightforward south-facing roof. Upgrading things to like well to cisterns, so that the water use is a little bit more, just less heavy on the well. But yeah, mostly just I think the old building is our, they got old plumbing and very questionable electrical.
There's also, we find a lot of confusion around sourcing some of the compostable and recyclable paper products. There doesn't really seem to be like one streamlined system when we're sourcing things. We're like, is it compostable? Is it recyclable? Often we're just ordering what's available. And sometimes it's compostable, sometimes it's recyclable, but sometimes it's the recyclable stuff that's not actually recyclable on Vancouver Island. So there is a lot of confusion around that. We do our best and we source what we can and try to keep it as efficient as possible. And we also do find like with this big old building, we want to do a lot of upgrades, but there is a limited kind of government support for a lot of like rebates and energy efficient upgrades that we're finding. We haven't found many, and the ones we do find, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through just to kind of get that support. So there's a bit of a financial barrier there as well.
Even for instance, like we just installed a heat pump there's a residential suite up above the restaurant. And we just installed a heat pump up there, but we weren't able to get any of the rebates because it's a commercial building, even though it's a residential space. So just things like that. I feel like there could be more opportunities and incentives.
Yeah, for sure. We can jump to the next slide and talk about some of our highlights though. Some of the highlights, they're working with Georgia was fantastic. And the report that they put together was so great to like guide us through. They had some really great, they pulled some great information we didn't even kind of know where we stood. They did find from the data we gave them and from the looking around and pulling up everything that we're diverting approximately 97% of our waste from the landfill between all the little things we're doing. And we have an overall circularity of 65%. So we felt like we were doing pretty good, even with some of the challenges and barriers. Some of the things in the report also laid out so many great areas we can further our efficiencies. And some things we have already implemented is some clear signage, especially for the customer side of things, getting customers more on top of knowing where the recycling goes and what bin, knowing where the compost goes. So then at the end of the day, the staff's not having to dig through garbage bags, and we're keeping that waste out of the dumpster as much as possible. We also have, we provide incentives to our customers to bring their own mugs, bring their own containers as well. So we are trying to do that. And on top of that, we've also just brought in cups from the NULA project, which is brought to us. They actually contacted us, but I think it was also in the report, which is great. I don't know if everyone knows about the NULA project, but they are a pretty new business that's going quite well in the Victoria area. And they have reusable cups and containers, and we purchase it from them. And then customers can buy one with a $5 deposit and then bring it back a dirty one to us, and we'll just give them a clean one. And if they ever want to stop using it, they just get their deposit back. So we just got them. We're just about to implement that as well. So we're excited to try that out. And another thing from the report is Frilo, which I kind of let Becky talk about because she's in the kitchen, so she knows.
Yeah. So this is something that I'd never heard of that I saw in the report. So from that, I contacted them and they got in touch with us right away and sent us a unit to try. So it's this little thing that you put in the deep fryer, and in theory, it extends the life of your fryer oil, which is amazing for multiple reasons because the fryers go through a lot of oil. It's also very expensive right now. So we are most of the way through a test run with this, and it seems to be doing really good. It's looking like we're going to be able to extend the life of our fryer oil by at least half, if not double. So I think we will go ahead and buy it, which is amazing. So that's less containers wasted, less oil going, even though our oil gets recycled, it's still less oil going out the door and less product used. So it's great and saves us money.
And some of our successes, we've got really great relationships with the farmers. We work with a ton of local farmers. We get our meat, our eggs, our produce in the season. Our coffee beans are locally roasted on Gabriola, and we just love this community. And there's just so many great farms, and we love being able to work really well with them.
That saves us a lot of food packaging as well. So, you know, when you order produce, a lot of it comes in a plastic bag, in a cardboard box. So for almost all of the farmers, we just have bins that we have here. They pick them up, and then we just rotate when they come and drop stuff off. And we're working on a similar system, just trying to figure out what to use, but with our coffee roaster as well.
And then we do have a really great team of staff. A lot of them have the same values, visions of us. They believe in what we're doing, and they're also happy to be here. And we're also trying to give them a really great work environment. And we're working towards being certified as a living wage employer as well. And we feel like they're just so embedded in it with us. It's really fantastic. And just the whole experience with the Accelerator program has really given us like a platform to share what we're doing, especially in our first year, in like our first real year as a like brick and mortar cafe in business. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, and then just moving forward, like Becky was saying before, building upgrades, improvements, adding solar, adding some cisterns to the back to ease some pressure on our wells. We are on Gabriola, so it is all wells and septic, so we do have to be really conscious of that, and continuing to use the report to guide us and implement more just small to large things as we go and as finances allow us to do. And yeah, just the restaurant industry itself is not, it's very notoriously not very sustainable, but we started this very committed to our vision. We feel like now is a really good time to just forge ahead and work outside the norms and continue on. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen and Becky. It's really exciting to see the work that you've implemented already and what's on the horizon and just like what has been working. And I really hear you on the challenges as well. So thank you so much for sharing. I put in the chat Does anybody have any questions for Jen and Becky that we can answer while we're on the call? And I know there might be some that pop up afterwards as well. So if you do have a question for them that comes to mind afterwards, please feel free to reach out to us and I can always send it to them.
I
Do
see.
you have?
There's one
Oh,
question
go
here
ahead.
about growing. Sorry, there's one question here about growing oyster mushrooms with the coffee waste. We currently, all our coffee waste is currently being taken by a local farmer. He uses it to grow his carrots. Apparently, it helps keep one of the, I don't know, insects down that's not great. Yeah, that's right. So he's been taking the coffee waste, but maybe on the horizon, we're still. Yeah.
We have actually been sourcing local oyster mushrooms from somebody else.
That's awesome. I love that. Always a fun project to just experiment with too. There's another one here asking what are the suggestions for low carbon menu options?
Yeah. So this is sort of just off the top of my head, but one thing that we do, and this is also really good for our food costs, is although we do have meat on the menu, our portions of meat are quite small relative to like the rest of the dish. So, but I know somebody commented the other day, they were like, I don't know how it is, but I've like never had a pulled pork sandwich that has less meat on it, but that's so good. So it's just, you just have to build it with that in mind. So using less meat is huge. And then for us, the sourcing local is massive. Like the transport for so much of our stuff is just like a couple of kilometers. The packaging is down. Even especially with the sourcing local meat, most of it comes wrapped in paper that we can compost.
Paying about the living wage.
Naomi, I saw you took yourself off of mute. Did you have a follow-up question for Jen and Becky?
Oh goodness, I apologize. Sorry, I didn't realize that, but thank you for letting me know.
That's okay. Just wanted to make sure we weren't missing something. Wonderful. Well, Jen and Becky, thank you so much for sharing your story, for coming and speaking with all of us today. Really, really appreciate it. And it's been such a treat to get to work with both of you throughout the program. And I can't wait to just see what you continue to do in the future, because I know that there's very great things ahead.
Yay. Same.
you.
Back at you. Thank you for making it happen.
Yeah, this is excellent. Thank you.
And I think we're probably going to leave the presentation to go back to work. But if anybody has any questions like outside of this presentation, feel absolutely free to send us an email.
I'll put it in the chat. Our email address. Yeah.
Oh, so smart.
Yes, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to. Yeah, and if you have any suggestions too for us as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
having
having
a great day and
You too.
enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. All right. So with that, we're going to pass it over to Reusables Vancouver Island. So we have Jason Hawkins here to join us today. He's the CEO and co-founder of Reusables. It's a tech-enabled stainless steel reusable container service provider for restaurants, cafes, event venues, and more. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Jason, and let you take it away.
Thanks for really awesome and stoked to be here. I'm one of two co-founders of Reusables. We started in Vancouver and are now available in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island as well. So excited to share more about what we offer for food service businesses, and talk a bit about the landscape and some of the hurdles that we've been facing and some of the challenges we're helping businesses to address. Hopefully it'll take maybe 10-12 minutes or so, and then open it up for some questions, and let's see if we can have a bit of a two-way discussion. So the business was started during the pandemic. We actually were helping food restaurants primarily in East Vancouver reduce their single-use packaging waste when they were only doing food delivery and takeout. So we created a system that allowed people to be able to borrow and return stainless steel reusable containers from restaurants across our network of stores. So we started with just a handful of stores in East Van. Now we have just under 100 stores in British Columbia, including the island. So that's been an exciting path for us to be able to help businesses to transition more towards a circular economy model and really try and make it easy for them and for consumers to be able to opt in. So just explaining a bit about our model. The way that it works is we don't do a deposit system. So people don't have to pay anything more upfront. They just have to provide their phone number or tap to borrow a container, and then if they don't return, then they pay for the container in a refundable charge. And then if they just forgot to return after the 2-week period, then we will, give them their money back whenever they return in the future. So it's kind of like a library system. Really, we're just trying to get these containers back. We have about a 98.5% return rate, and yeah, people seem to be liking the experience. So Georgia, if you go to the next slide, these are this is a map of where we are currently on the island. So we've started about a year ago on the island, and actually started in Nanaimo and then went over to Tofino, Yuki, and have some stores also in Victoria as well. We're starting to put more focus on Victoria as well, especially with some of the legislation that's come down in the bylaws, and then just what we're seeing in terms of interest from stores as well. So for us, I think like we really try to take a localized approach. So we actually partner with a couple of like local cleaners. We partner with local nonprofits that as well that can support to engage the communities in which we operate in, and really try to design it with sort of the local community in mind. So it's been a cool journey for us to be able to see how passionate the different communities that on the island are about this, and see how we can localize the operations so we don't have to be driving containers around the island to wash them. So there's a lot of like shared washing that's available, and yeah, just trying to make it as environmentally and cost effective as possible for the businesses. Next slide. So just sharing a few images of some of the folks we work with. You can scroll through there, Georgia. It's just 2 more slides about some of the relationships that we've been able to establish so far. So again, we're really excited about these, and hopefully more to come there as well. I think just on the problem side, so we're all kind of on the same page. Like we are approaching this from the perspective of if we can move away from single-use packaging to reusable packaging, it would be beneficial for businesses in terms of longer-term cost savings on disposable packaging, but also, of course, the environmental impact. So we look at it both from a single-use packaging waste diversion perspective and also a climate perspective. So we do a life cycle assessment on our containers where we know where they're manufactured, how they're manufactured, how they get shipped to Canada, how they get distributed and collected, what the washing and water consumption is. And we kind of run that in a model that we can say, okay, if we get 98.5% of these back, on average, we're looking at about 66 rotations per container. So we break even on a carbon level, like the amount of energy we had to invest to create one of these after about 15 rotations. So then everything from 15 until that 66, 70 rotations is, climate impact. So, carbon negative impact. So we think about that side of it as well. And it is important to make sure that we're getting the return rate that we need to see to make it impactful from an environmental perspective. Okay, next slide. I'd like to talk a bit about some of the regulatory sides of this problem. And I think just before I jump into this part, and we'll go into some of the local legislative landscape as well. I think one of the main challenges here that we need to all be aware of is we're facing like consumer adoption as one of the main barriers, right? It's really challenging for a mass, sort of an average consumer or the masses to shift their behavior in a short period of time without real incentives or real requirements to do so. So for example, we do work also with like campuses, university campuses, corporate campuses. We do work with film and television production sets in those like closed loop environments. I think I would say hotels would be another example. Those closed loop environments, you can just almost mandate that reuse is required, either for in-house or for takeaway. And that makes it easy for people. They can just say, okay, well, this is what I'm getting my food in a stainless steel dish and I'm putting it into this bin when I'm done, right? So that's easy. But when you're working in an open network, which we do on the island in Vancouver as well, you have many stores, many users, and they take these things home and then they have to return them. They're wondering, where am I going to return them? How am I going to return them? There's a lot of trust involved. And there's, there is currently an element of inconvenience compared to getting your Starbucks cup and throwing it in the garbage, right? So our job is trying to make it as convenient as possible. But of course, on the regulatory side, there is an important piece of how are we, encouraging businesses and consumers to move towards more of a circular economy. So these are some examples on a global level. I would just like to highlight the European Union. They have a very progressive deal that's coming through right now, and expected to be approved this year at a European Union level that would actually set reuse targets. So this is really interesting. I'm hoping that it's going to set a lot of precedent for other legislation in different jurisdictions, including Canada. But it moves a step past a ban, and it actually puts in place like the solution and saying, hey, we want to see X percentage of your packaging to be reusable by 2025, by 2030. And they actually go as far as by 2040, 80% of single use, 80% of takeaway packaging needs to be reusable for food service businesses across EU by 2040, which is incredibly aggressive because we're sitting at like probably less than 1% right now for takeaway. So it's exciting. Okay, now the next slide, Georgia. We were all familiar with sort of the federal regulations in Canada, so I just wanted to kind of highlight where we are right now. Of course, we're currently in it in terms of the manufactured import for sale, but then we're going to move into the prohibitions on sale. Now, of course, at the beginning of next year. Now, of course, this is just a problematic list of items. So businesses can switch to items that are not on this list, right? They still may be single use. And I think that's part of the challenge that we're seeing. So if you go to the next slide, Georgia, the intention here as Clean BC has illustrated even, I would say, more directly than ECCC has, is that we want to move towards a circular economy. So not necessarily just replacing a single-use plastic item for a bioplastic item or an alternative materials item that may or may not be able to be composted in the jurisdiction. So I think what we'll probably end up seeing is perhaps some in the future at a federal level, but maybe on a shorter timeline at a provincial level or a local level, some more regulations around, single-use packaging as a whole, not just focusing on plastic, but also some of those alternative materials, trying to encourage businesses and consumers to shift towards a reuse model that has been proven to be more sustainable. The next slide, Georgia, I just wanted to highlight obviously some of the local legislation and regulations. So I think, in Victoria, there's been some work done, and I think it seems like there's conversations about the pros and cons, as there always will be at a local level. In Vancouver, of course, they've repealed the single-use cup fee requirement. Happy to talk about that as a solution provider and share kind of perspective on what we saw, because we were, again, as part of that whole transition in Vancouver with the bylaw and what some of the impacts were. I will say that, by and large, these bylaws and regulations, they raise the awareness. And I think that there is some iteration that's going to be required at the local level, because we don't exactly know what the right mechanism is going to be to achieve the outcome, but it does take, a leap of faith to put something into place and test it and see what happens. So, I applaud the City of Vancouver and the City of Victoria for taking a stab at this. It may not exactly be right when you try it out first. So it may take a couple of iterations. Just like a business, we've trying composite systems. We're trying, different technologies. How do you make it easy? You have to go to market and test this stuff. So it's positive to see that these kinds of things are in motion. Okay, Georgia, so the next slide. Yeah, and then I just highlighted the Nanaimo piece around, the compostable plastic side. So again, just really thinking about what are we moving towards? What is the legislation and regulation pushing us towards? And are those alternatives advantageous for us? Okay, next slide. So I think, again, at a high level, I feel like this is probably where we're trending towards. And I do think that the smart businesses now are starting to transition more directly to reusable and trying to sort of skip that compostable step. Okay, next slide. So just a bit about us. We try to make reuse as seamless as possible. So we have different ways for people to borrow and return. This is our latest evolution, where it's a tap to reuse or a tap to borrow experience. So the one thing we need is we need the accountability that somebody's going to return it, right? It's kind of like when you rent a car, when you rent, when you used to go to Blockbuster and rent a movie, you need to be able to make sure that the person's going to return it. If they decide not to, they need to pay for the container as a refundable deposit. But we decided that we didn't want to charge people a deposit up front. We felt that would be a barrier for too many folks to have to pay extra up front. Plus, we like stainless steel rather than plastic, and we want to use a high quality asset. So it would be prohibitive for people to have to pay $5–10 deposit on every container that they use from us. Okay, and a bit of information on next slide there. Just a bit of information on some of the stores that we have 100+ in BC, and then we had the opportunity to work with some larger organizations as well to help their customers implement reuse. So really excited by that. Again, film and TV, food delivery, food service across different campuses as well. So next slide. The experience for the consumer is really, again, trying to make it as easy as possible for them. We do include a rewards component to this as well, where when they return, they get points and they can redeem those points for like a free coffee. So it's kind of like a digital punch card across the store network. So we try to use the carrot and the stick analogy, I guess. So it's not just we'll charge you if you don't return, but let's see if we can incentivize, make it fun, gamify it, create that emotional connection, try and get people engaged in opting in for reuse. Okay, next slide. And just some more photos of this is actually in Seattle. We have a pilot going with our tap to reuse system and our smart return bin. So this thing is a kind of a fun bin that you can just drop your container in. You don't have to do anything. It only accepts reusable containers, and it automatically removes it from your account when you return it. So again, just trying to mimic that single use experience and be innovative on how we go about doing that. We have a variety of different containers that we use. Everything from a 50-ounce rectangular container down to a 16-ounce rectangular, 12-ounce coffee cup, 16-ounce coffee cups, bowls, etc. We do like stainless steel the best for a number of reasons. And our model allows us to have a high quality asset. So there's experience and high performance, value propositions here as well with the packaging compared to some of the alternatives as well. Okay, next slide, you'll see some of the other photos. We have experimented with looking at like consumer packaged goods products, so shampoo bottles and that kind of thing. We're not quite there yet. Maybe in the future we'll look down that road a bit further, but there's a lot of interest from brands as well. So you could think in the future, our vision is like, well, if I can go to a grocery store and get 50, 60, 75% of my basket of groceries in reusable containers, at that scale, that's when it starts to make more sense for an at-home collection. So you can think of like the fourth bin. Does Recycle BC start to allow you to return your reusables to a bin and then have that convenience be enabled when there's enough reusables in circulation? So it's an exciting proposition for us that probably will be a few years away still. Next slide. So here's an example, just a case study on Simon Fraser University. So you get a sense for some of the other businesses that we work with outside of just restaurants. But we were able to help them save money on their waste management and packaging costs. We had a very high return rate, actually 100% return rate of the containers across the pilot that we engaged with them. And now we've renewed with them to launch across their campus in the fall. And just really, really good engagement with the students. Like people really feel good about going to work, going to school, and knowing that they're participating in something that's positive and not contributing to the problem. Okay, and next slide, you'll see an example that we have with a film and television production set. So this is an exciting new vertical for us. There's a huge amount of impact that is created on these production sets. Lots of people eating off catering trucks every day. they're mostly using single-use packaging. So just a tremendous amount of impact that can be created in a short period of time. And I see there's some questions coming in the chat, so I'll just go to the next slide, Georgia, and wrap this part of the presentation up. But I would love to start to answer some questions and dive a bit deeper for folks. So thanks so much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. It's so exciting to see how much growth you've been experiencing over the past couple of years as well, and the real impact that you're having on communities and in this reusable space. I see the first question here from Barry asking if you've considered working with any farmers markets as a pilot project, suggesting the Duncan's Farmers Market and the Co-op as some potential good organizations to partner with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great suggestion, Barry. Thanks a lot. We'd love to connect there and see if there's an opportunity to work with them, whether it's providing packaging or even just being a partner, a promotional partner. Happy to have that connection. Thanks.
Awesome. And then the next question here is asking, what is the net carbon savings your clients experience by extracting steel versus using plastic and or papers? And what's the cost comparison?
Yeah, so the carbon savings that the clients experience, we typically look at it on an aggregate basis across our entire inventory. So, regardless of whether they got a container delivered that they're using that is brand new or one that's been actually cycled 50 times, we know that on average across our inventory with a return rate of 98.5%, we are able to assure that each container will be used up to 66 times, right? Again, mathematically speaking, of course, there could be damage, etc., that requires us to reduce that number, or could go beyond that if the return rate increases. So we translate that to them in terms of, as opposed to purchasing single-use plastic or paper or other materials, we can show them what the impact would be compared to what they're using today. So it will depend on what they're using today. But there are savings on every level of single-use packaging, given the number of rotations that we're able to achieve in our system. And then in terms of the cost comparison, we're able to save the restaurants money on the packaging after they have about 3%, just 3% of their customers using reusables. So compared to compostable packaging, which is, again, becoming very, very expensive for restaurants, we're an attractive option from a financial perspective. We don't really compete with like styrofoam or very low quality plastic. It's difficult for us to compete on cost with that. But compared to kind of the alternative, which would be compostable, we're very competitive.
That's awesome. I always love when the circular solutions like the reusables have that cost comparativeness, or that cost benefit associated with them. It really just shows, there's no reason not to do this at that point.
Yeah, I mean, our model, I'll just say, Georgia, in full transparency for stores, is we do a membership model or a subscription model for stores. So there's a partnership involved where, again, the more people that use reuse, then that's where the cost savings are going to be for them, right? Because it's for them, we look at how can we partner together to get more people to use this? That brings our cost down, and that brings your cost down. So it's kind of a win-win for both. And then it looks like there's a question from Jeremy. Oh, sorry, George, I guess I'm taking your job there.
No, that's okay. Go for it.
Jeremy has a question about the business model for hotels and hotel guests. Yes, Jeremy, we do have a model there. Tourism is a huge area of focus for us right now. So we'd love to discuss that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason, for coming and sharing today about all of the work that you're doing with reusables. I think it's really a huge opportunity in this space, and it's great to see the uptake and interest from businesses on Vancouver Island as well, and starting to create those pockets, and really resonating with what you had just said recently about the importance of collaboration. And the more businesses that we get doing this work, the more sense it's making economically as well. And so really just encourage all of the folks that are on the call today, if you see opportunities with this, or if it aligns with your business or a business you work with, to connect. I think that the collaboration piece is so important when we look at how can we advance a circular economy, and being in the communities that we're in that are so well connected. There's a lot of opportunity there. So thank you so much, Jason. If you don't mind maybe putting I know your email was on the last slide there, but just putting that in the chat as well, in case any folks would like to connect with you, especially if you had any other questions for Jason that we didn't have a chance to get to today, that would be wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
All right. Now with that, I know we have just about 5 minutes left, so I'm conscious of our time here together today. I do want to share just a few other circular solutions to consider within tourism and hospitality. And these are really coming from things that were highlighted through our circularity assessments. So with the businesses that we worked with, these were common opportunities that we had found. And so kind of broken them out onto a few different slides here. On the financial side, thinking of, can you use a wage subsidy program to help support the capacity for sustainability practices? So this could help to fund a role within your organization. If you're a larger hotel or operator, it could help to fund that position to help you focus on those sustainability initiatives. I know that capacity is really challenging with our labor shortages and all. So that could be one mechanism to consider. We've also seen other hotels implement an eco fee. So you could work with an organization that runs these. There is this one called the Eco Fund, and it allows you to add a fee to guest rooms per night. So examples for $2 per night to each guest room. And this money can be used to support larger carbon reduction projects on the property. So we have seen a few hotels in the community implementing these eco fees and having some really positive results with that. Other businesses, including tour operators or restaurants, could also add some small eco fees to support more capital intensive projects. We've worked with a brewery and they did a solar brew that had an additional fee, and that helped fund a solar project. So just thinking of unique ways that you can also have your guests along on this journey with you as well. You could also look, internally at your team, creating either a green team or a zero waste champion, depending on the size of your organization. So really through a green team, you're going to bring in individuals from different departments. If you're a smaller organization, having a zero waste champion is also perfect. And really what this role or this group is doing is encouraging zero waste practices within your operations. So that could be monitoring and sorting waste and identifying contamination, tracking your waste diversion rates and implementing cost-saving practices. It could also include identifying opportunities to enhance the sustainability initiatives at your organization and communicating best practices to staff. You might even update some of your job descriptions to include sustainability responsibilities and values of your organization. So as you're going out to seek new talent, having a statement on your job description of your company's commitment to sustainability can attract environmentally minded team members as well. It can also help your team to engage in sustainability efforts. And kind of coming back to that zero waste champion and green team piece, that might be something that you recognize in the job description as an opportunity, so that job seekers who would like to have that element involved in their role know that that's an opportunity at the organization to be involved in. You could also look at using a commercial refillery program. So whether this is for your guest-facing amenities, for guest room amenities, hand soap in the public washrooms, anything like that, using a commercial refill program, as well as for back of house with your cleaning products. So the one example we have on the screen here is the Den. They're located in Ucluelet, and they are really working with hotels, resorts, and accommodations to provide both the front of house and back of house refill amenity programs. And then donating your used products. So a great organization we have here in BC is Soap for Hope. They collect and reprocess hygiene products from guest rooms, and they deliver hygiene products and linens to underserved communities. You can also look for other opportunities to donate used products through a liquidation service to collect the textiles and furniture out of hotel rooms and so on. So wrapping up quickly with some next steps, start small. You don't have to make huge investments or plans immediately. Start by identifying 2 to 3 achievable actions that you could make within your business today. Start a green team or nominate a zero waste champion to be the sustainability leaders within your business. Consider conscious consuming. So think about where you're spending your money. Review your organization's purchasing policy if you have one, and apply a circular economy lens to it. Thinking of your energy efficiency of equipment, your product material inputs, the recyclability, repairability, and durability of the goods, and the disposal options at end of life. Start the conversation. So both internally with your team, build awareness and get them engaged, and consider how your business can empower others within the community. Seek other learning opportunities. It's great to have so many of you on the call here today, and just seek other learning opportunities to continue to build that capacity. And lastly, reduce and find new uses for your waste. So this could be a waste audit, looking at new streams for new revenue streams for your waste, and tracking the waste within your organization. Thank you so much to everyone who attended today. We will have the recording of this webinar posted within the next week, and we'll send it out to all of the registrants. We do have 3 other webinars in this series on construction, food and beverage processing, and local government. And we will also be releasing a business guide in June that highlights some key actions and opportunities to support businesses to transition to a circular economy. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thank you.